Diolch yn fawr. Diolch yn fawr. I'm not one that's used to get applauded, so I think the first time I've been in Cardiff and been applauded, especially when it comes to the Arms Park. Thanks very much for your kind words, Andrew, and thanks very much for the opportunity to come and speak to you here tonight. I hope you've all got legal tyres and tax on your car, because these two here are going to be around looking in a minute. I actually got pulled in for speeding on the way here. I was a bit late. I was doing 85 on the M4, and as I was pulled in, the policeman said, well, Nigel Owens, the referee. I've been waiting for you. I said, well, officer, I got it as quick as I could. I thought tonight I would take you on a journey, I guess. I'd take you on a journey of where I'm from, a little bit of how I got into refereeing, my upbringing, which is hugely relevant in my life, and I guess in all of our lives. Some of the difficult obstacles I had to overcome, and also some of the challenges that I had to overcome myself, personally, in accepting who I was, to where we are today, I guess. I was brought up in a small village called Mynydd Cerrig, and for those of you who don't speak Welsh, if we translate that from Mynydd Cerrig, it's translated to English, it's the mountain of stone, and it's pretty much what it is. Right on top of the mountain, looking down on the Gwyndraith Valley. The population of about 140 people in the village. The primary school I went to, which was closed about 9 years ago now, only had about 16 kids in the school. So very small community. And if you want to try and imagine for a minute, try and imagine what being brought up in Mynydd Cerrig was like in the 1970s. And if you want to imagine what being brought up in Mynydd Cerrig was like in the 1970s, then go there now. Because nothing's changed. I was brought up by my mum and dad, which I believe to be in the right way, and I wouldn't want my upbringing to be any different to what it was. I was brought up, I guess, in an old-fashioned way, where your grandparents and your family around you, especially living in a small village with a lot of your family there, have a huge influence on your upbringing as well. Because when your mum and dad are in work and you were ill off school, then you didn't have child minders and stuff. Then your grandmother look after you, your grandfather, or your uncle, your auntie, or sometimes the old lady living down the road or next door. I went to the primary school. I couldn't speak English till I was about 6 or 7 years of age, till I learned it in school. And then, after a very happy time in Mynydd Cerrig school, I then, believe it or not, I passed my 11+. How, I'll never know, but I passed it. I went to the Gwyndraith Grammar School the last year to do the 11+, and the last one to do the O-levels, actually, because they then turned to GCSEs. So I went to the Gwyndraith Grammar School, which is a very famous school, where Carwyn James, Barry John, Jonathan Davies, Gareth Davies, the current chairman of the Welsh Rugby Union, where they all went to, which Max Boyce wrote his song of the Outside Our Factory, was based on the Gwyndraith Grammar School, and of course, a referee. And there came a time, you will see over the next 20, 30, 40 minutes or so how things happen in life by chance which change the course of your life. And very luckily in my life, they changed for the better. In other people's lives, they don't always change for the better. But I was very lucky that these moments in my life which happened by chance, or a last-minute change of mind, changed my life for the better. And the first time of that was when I went to the Gwyndraith Grammar School, 11 years of age. I was bullied in school for no apparent reason. Still don't know till this day why, but I was bullied in school by one individual. And but bullying took the best part of 5-6 months. it had a huge influence on me in my education, because if the Gwynedd Grammar School hadn't changed to a Welsh, the education system changed where the Gwynedd Grammar Schools were phased out, and then you had a choice of going to the English language school or the Welsh medium school. And when I was in the Gwynedd Grammar School, I was bullied. And if you've been bullied yourself, you will understand how much hell life is when you're being bullied. And you feel a sense of ashamedness, that it's your fault. You feel a sense of weakness, that it's your fault. And that's why a lot of bullies don't speak out, particularly young people, young children. They don't speak out to it because they feel it's their own fault. It's a sign of weakness, a sign of an embarrassment in telling people. When it's not. To actually speak out and stand up is a sign of huge strength. And I wasn't speaking out about it, and it was affecting my life. It was affecting my education. I didn't want to go to school. I was lying to my mum and dad that I was ill when I wasn't ill, and pretending to be ill, and going to school and then missing lessons, and then getting back to school to catch the bus home, and life was hell. And it was affecting my education, affecting my life. And it stopped by pure chance. At the end of that year, or coming to the end of the year, you had to make a decision of whether you stayed in the Gwynedd Grammar School or if you went to Maes Orfa, the Welsh medium school. And I was going to stay in the Gwynedd Grammar School because I had cousins in every year older than me, and they were staying in the Gwynedd Grammar School. And a lot of people's perception then was that even though the grammar school was ceasing to exist, that it would still be a grammar school. So a lot of parents kept their children, or made the choice to attend the English medium school because they still felt it was a grammar school, but it wasn't. And then after about 2-3 years, people realized it wasn't, and then the huge number of increase of children went to the Welsh medium school, and then the education of the Welsh medium school just rose and rose, and so did the numbers. So I was going to stay in the Gwynedd Grammar School, but then the bullying stopped by pure chance. My friends saw the bully picking at me one day, and they basically, one of my mates just caught him one on the chin, and down the bully went, and it took me great pleasure in seeing him on his arse on the floor with tears in his eyes. Pretty much now you know what it's felt like for the last 5 months. I did think about sticking the boot in, but I decided not to. So I then decided, these are my friends who stood up for me here, and they were going to the Welsh medium school in Maes Orfa. So I made the decision there and then I'm going to go to Maes Orfa school with them. And if I hadn't done that, my life would probably be very different now, because I wouldn't be refereeing probably. I wouldn't have had the opportunities I had in doing TV work and stuff when I was in school. So I went to Maes Orfa school, and which were great times, when I had the opportunity to do my first TV work, the first opportunity to start refereeing at 16 years of age. And when I was in school at 16 years of age, I had no ambition whatsoever becoming a referee, let alone an international referee. My ambition in Maes Orfa school at 16 years of age was a simple one. All I ever wanted to do was to appear live on the Antiques Roadshow. That's all I wanted to do. And just tell some lovely old lady, do you know how much that is worth, love? Fuck all. So there were great times in that school, and I didn't want to leave there. School and university probably are the best times of your life. That's when you make friends and become into the person you become that will be with you for the rest of your life. When you leave school or leave university, and when you don't see those friends for 40, 50 years for whatever reason, when you see them, it's just like they were there every day of your life. It's the best times of your life, as long as that environment is happy, and it's crucial then that you are able to be yourself in the environment, which I'll talk about it more in a minute. So I didn't do very well in school. I only passed 2 GCSEs, O-levels, history and drama, but I wanted to do A-levels. I wanted to stay in school. So I went back to do A-levels, and the reason I was allowed to go back to do A-levels was that I was going to continue to do my resits, and then if I passed my resits, I'd have enough O-levels or GCSEs, and I continued to do A-levels. If I didn't, then obviously I would have to finish school. So I went back to school, and after about 3 weeks in school, now can you imagine this happening today? This would never happen today, which is a shame in one sense. I went down to the office to get the rugby ball to go out in the yard to play rugby with my mates. And as I went down to the office to get the rugby ball, the headmaster said, Arwin Thomas, great character of a guy. He said, oh, you better make the most of playing rugby today, boys, because we're going to have to close the school tomorrow. The caretaker's gone off ill. He's having a hernia operation. And we can't get anybody to open up. And I said as a joke, oh, that's an easy enough job, I'll do it. So the following day, I go to the school, registration, Tarnoid goes, Nigel Owens to the headmaster's office, please. And I thought, oh shit, what have I done now? So I went to the headmaster's office and he said, I've been thinking what you said yesterday. It's a good idea, he said. If you want to do the caretaker's job, you can come in the morning, 6 o'clock, stoke the fires, make sure the water's boiling, open the doors, then continue with your education in the day, and then start back then at 3:30 then and lock up at 6:30 after the cleaners are all done and everything, and do your job and stoke the fires ready for the following day and make sure everything is right. Can you imagine that happening today? At 16 years of age, do you want to be the caretaker of a school? So I went home and told my mum and dad, and I said, well, yeah, well, if you want to do it. So I said, well, I'll give it a go. And then after about 4 weeks of doing the job, got a paid week in hand then, brown envelope, cash every week, £130 take home. At 16 years of age in 1988 was 1987 was a lot of money. And after about 3 weeks of doing this job, I thought, bugger the education, I'm going to stick with the caretaker's job. So all of a sudden now, my life was taking a total different direction. So I did the caretaker's job for the rest of the year. And the headmaster said, look, you've been great in the caretaker's job. The caretaker's starting back now in September. But he's then retiring the following September. So if you want to come back and do the job in a year's time, the job will be yours. So I left school on the old YTS scheme. I went to work on a farm. When I say 3 days, it was more like a 7-day week. 5 days on the farm, 2 days in Piberlwyd College and Gelliair College, studying agriculture, the better word of it, farming. And I did this for the year. And then before the caretaker retired, the headmaster rang and said, look, we can't get anybody to do the technician job in school. You fancy doing the technician job? No qualifications whatsoever. So I said, right, okay. So I went back to school and I worked there for the next 13 years as a technician, amongst a lot of other things whilst I was in school, until I started refereeing full-time back in 2001. So as you can see already, a lot of things have happened in my life by pure chance. When you get opportunities in life, people will always tell you, take those opportunities. It's very true, because it's much better to look back on your life in 40, 50 years' time and be able to say you had the opportunity, gave it your best, but wasn't quite good enough, than look back and say you didn't have the opportunity at all. So I took these opportunities that came my way. So I went back to school to work, and then at 18, 19 years of age, I was starting to realize that I was different. I was different to what I thought I was supposed to be, or going to be different to the way that I'd been brought up to be. And I wouldn't want my upbringing to be any different. I was brought up by my mum and dad. You get a girlfriend, you get married, you get kids, you become grandparents, and the world keeps on evolving. And I wouldn't want my upbringing to be different, because my upbringing was who made me who I am today. So I don't want it to be any different to what it was. And we're talking of a different era in time as well in the 70s. So all of a sudden at 18, 19 years of age, I was becoming somebody, I didn't know who I was. I was becoming somebody that was totally alien to me. I was starting to realize, I had a girlfriend at the time, but I started to realize, well, why am I finding myself attracted to men? And this was not what was supposed to happen. And I was becoming somebody, in all honesty, I didn't want to be. I knew nothing about it. I never knew nothing about being gay. I never met a gay person. I'd never seen a gay person. I never knew of a gay person. The only gay person at 18, 19 years of age I could relate to being gay was some of the very, very camp characters that were on some of the television programs. And to me, knowing no different at the time, to me, well, that's a gay person. And that is not me. I'm not like that. So I can't be gay. So at 19 years of age, becoming somebody I didn't want to be, becoming somebody I didn't know nothing about. I was in a pretty bad place. I was starting to get me down. I was quite overweight at about 19 years of age. I was about 16.5 stone. So by finding myself attracted to a man, I think, well, no man is going to find me attractive if I'm going to be overweight and looking like this. So I decided to lose some weight. So I lost weight the wrong way. I became bulimic. I used to eat food, stuff myself with food, and then I'd rush to the toilet afterwards and make myself sick every day. And I went from about 16.5 stone down to 11.5 stone. And when you lose a lot of weight the wrong way like that, you look pale, you don't look healthy, and you lose a bit of your bubbliness and character with it as well. So I was suffering from depression and mental health issues in dealing who I was. I was depressed, I was bulimic, and then I started going to the gym to try and put some weight on to make myself look better. And when I got to the gym, I started putting some weight on and training. I then started using steroids, and then I got hooked on steroids. So by the time I was 24 years of age, I was in a pretty bad place. I was dealing with my sexuality, fighting against who I was and who I was becoming. Bulimic, and now hooked on steroids. And one of the massive side effects of steroids, it has many side effects, but one of them is it can make you depressed, short-tempered, and a lot of other side issues as well. So what was already a bad place was now getting worse. And I thought, there's only one way out of this, or two ways out of this at the time, is I'd read somewhere, and I thought at that time, and this is why education is so hugely important, I thought at that time that being gay was something to do with a sexual attraction, nothing more. So I thought, and I'd read somewhere, and I thought that if I get chemically castrated, it'll take away the sexual urges that I was feeling for men, or the attraction for men, and that would cure me. That's what I felt at the time. So I went to the doctor, and I said, look, I told him the issues. I was depressed all the time and having suicidal thoughts, and I read that I could get chemically castrated, and obviously the answer to him was no, you can't, and things don't work like that. So the only way out for me now was gone. So then from 24 to 25, 26 years of age, for the next 2 years, I was now in a very, very bad place. And I thought there's only one way out. And I had these thoughts for years, and they were getting stronger and getting stronger, and I thought, there's only one way out of this now. I'm going to have to take my own life. So I did something one night, something that I have to live with for the rest of my life, something that I will regret for the rest of my life. I left a note for my mum and dad, left the house with a couple of boxes of paracetamols and a bottle of whiskey, and because I worked on the farm, I had a shotgun in the house, and I left with a loaded shotgun as well. And I'll never ever forgive myself for what I put my mum and dad through that night when they got up and read that letter. They didn't know why, but when they read that letter and probably thought they were never going to see their only child ever again, I'll never forgive myself for doing that. And I would have lived with that for the rest of my life. And I walked around where I was brought up, pretty much saying goodbye to everything I'd known, to the village and the community that I'd been brought up in. And what I actually took to take my own life actually landed up saving me, because I overdosed on the paracetamols, drank the whiskey, and then slipped into a coma. So there were search parties looking for me. There was a police helicopter, and they located me by the heat sensors they have, and they could see I was still alive, but they could also see that I had now a shotgun lying on my chest, in my hands, pointing to the bottom of my chin. So they obviously knew I was alive. They didn't know if I was conscious or not, so they didn't know if they're going to come near me, what I was going to do to myself, or even worse than that, what I was going to do to anybody else who came near me. So they stayed away for a while. They realized then that the heat in my body was now getting less and less. So they realized that if we don't do something now, then he's going to die anyway. So I was obviously unconscious. They came in, I got airlifted to hospital. And after spending a couple of days in intensive care in hospital, I came around and the doctor told me in no uncertain terms that another 20 minutes would have been too late to save you. You were a very, very lucky young man. And then my mum and dad were visiting family and friends. And then my mum came back one night. I was in for about 5 or 6 days. My mum came back and she said, if you ever do anything like that again, then you take me and your dad with you, because we don't want to live our life without you. And my mum left and I sat up in bed and I cried. And that is the moment that my life changed forever. And that is the moment that my life was saved, because I sat up in bed and I cried and I realized I need to grow up here. I need to grow up and I need to accept who I am. And that was the biggest challenge in my life done with. Refereeing the World Cup final a year and a half ago in Twickenham between Australia and New Zealand in front of 85,000 people. Millions of people watching at home on television, looking to see every single decision you make, to see if you make any mistakes, is massive pressure. But the challenge of accepting who I was much more than the challenge of refereeing any World Cup final. And the biggest challenge that anybody will come across in their life, in my case, it was accepting who I was. In other people's cases, it'll be accepting that they have problems in school if they're being bullied, in the workplace, financial problems, relationship problems, work problems, studying problems, worrying about your exams. Whatever the worry is that is keeping you down and making you feel down and depressed, the biggest challenge you will ever overcome is accepting that there is something in your life you need to change because it's putting you in a bad place. And the challenge for me was accepting who I was. And only after accepting that there's a problem, or accepting who I was in my case, can you then move on to the next stage of doing something about it. You can't do anything to change things in your life unless you accept there's something that needs to be changed, or I need to seek help, or I need to talk about it so I can overcome this problem, whatever it is. So I had overcome the biggest challenge in my life. Now I was on to the next challenge. And the next challenge took the best part of another 8 to 9 years, 10 years actually. The next challenge, which was very difficult, but not as difficult as the challenge of accepting who I was, now was the challenge of, what am I going to do about it? Am I going to continue to living my life a lie? Am I going to keep on lying to my mum and dad and the people that mean the most to me? What am I going to do with my refereeing? Is rugby? Are the people within rugby? Is sport? People within my community? My mum and dad? Are they going to accept me for who I am? And I honestly didn't know at the time that they would. And looking back now, of course they would have. But I didn't know at the time. And even now, where things have changed so much in the last 20, 25 years by the great work that you are doing here tonight, and the great work that Stonewall and other organizations are doing, hugely important and great work as well in enabling us to be where we are today. There's a lot more to be done, but there's huge strides being made. Even today, 13 months ago, I sat down with a 16-year-old boy whose mum and dad had chucked him out of the house because he was gay. I know the family. I know them, don't know them well, but I know them pretty well. I know of them. His mum and dad go to church every Sunday. And yet there they are, chucking their own son out on the street because he is different in their eyes. He's now living with his auntie. But I didn't really know. I honestly didn't know at that time in my life whether my mum and dad would react the same. I should have known better, but you didn't know that fear was there. So I didn't tell anybody for the next 9 or 10 years. And that was still not putting me in a dark place where I was before, but still keeping me down, still having mental health issues, still making me feel depressed, still bulimic. I was bulimic until 9 years ago, until my mum passed away. Not to the extent I was then, but still from time to time. Because bulimia had become a habit, and habits are very difficult to break. And I honestly didn't know what my mum and dad were going to say, my family, my friends. And one of the difficult reasons as well, because I was brought up in a small community where everybody knows everybody, most of us are related, everybody knows everybody. It was a huge hindrance in me accepting who I was, and also in accepting who I was and telling people who I was. And that held me back. If I was living in a big city and didn't really know who lived next door to you or lived above you, then things probably would have been very different. But the small community was hindering me, and I didn't want to move away from there. But then, after becoming who I was, I wouldn't have got through all those difficult times without the community pulling together and helping me and my family and my mum and dad through it. So I was now at a time in my life where I was starting to referee some games on television. I was doing, Jonathan Sherwood started, so I was becoming a bit more of a familiar face within Wales and outside Wales in the refereeing world. But I still wasn't out. I still wasn't able to be who I was. Until you are able to be who you truly are, you can never, ever be happy in your life. And unless you are happy within your life and happy within yourself, you can never excel at what you're doing. Whether it is you're studying for exams in school or in university, in whatever sport you participate in, whatever workplace you work in, until you are happy within yourself and allowed to be yourself in the environment that you find yourself in, then you can never ever be the best that you can be. And I was not the best at what I could be at refereeing at that time because I was still fighting against it and still that worry in the back of my mind of what are people going to say. Am I going to be able to continue my refereeing when people find out? And nobody should have to make the decision in being who you are or continuing in the sport, in my case, that I loved, or being in the workplace or doing the work that you want to do and choosing doing that or being who you are. But I felt I'm going to have to make a choice. There was nobody out in the macho world of rugby. And I thought I'm going to have to make a choice. I'm going to have to decide either to live a lie and be who I am to continue my refereeing, or do I finish refereeing so I can be who I am? And that's a choice nobody should have to make. But I thought I'm going to have to make it. And because I wasn't happy within myself and able to be myself, I wasn't performing as well as I should be on the field. And I'd done an international. I'd done Scotland Barbarians, and I did Japan, Ireland, my first test in Osaka. But I didn't referee them well, because still in the back of my mind was this worry, which was time to time was taking your focus away from what you should be doing, and you weren't happy within yourself. And I didn't referee these games as well as I should. I did okay, but not well enough. And then, after those internationals came the autumn appointments for the internationals in the November window. There were 15 international games in November in 2005, and there were 16 international referees. I was the worst performer of the 16 international referees in the June internationals. And the referees manager, Paddy O'Brien, rang me up at the time and he said, look, I got 15 international games to appoint in November. This was around like August, September. And I've only got 15 international referees, games, and I've got 16 international referees. You were the worst performer of the 16, so you were going to miss out on the game. And I thought, my chance is gone. I've blown it. And then 3 weeks later, they rang back and said, there's another game come in. Argentina have arranged to play Samoa in Buenos Aires the first weekend of December outside the international window. So I'm appointing you to this game, so all of you will have had a game. You need to perform in this game or it'll probably be your last. And I thought, right, I was fine physically, but mentally I wasn't, because still was this worry of me hiding and lying to myself. And as you said earlier, I was getting by, but I wasn't able to thrive. And I had to make a decision. I thought, right, what am I going to do? Am I going to continue living this lie? If I do, then this probably will be my last chance, because I can't see me performing any better when all this worry is going on around me. Not sleeping at night worrying about this. And I had 5 months to prepare for this game. I said, right, I need to prepare for myself physically, and I was fine physically, but I need to prepare mentally. And I'm going to have to bite the bullet. I'm going to have to tell my mum and dad. I'm going to have to tell the Welsh Rugby Union, and I'll see what happens. So I told my mum, very difficult thing to do, to tell my mum that I was gay. Even to tell a person that would do anything for you, it was still difficult in saying that word, I'm gay. But I told my mum, we both cried, but nothing changed between us. I left her to tell my dad. It took her a couple of days, but he found it difficult because he didn't know nothing about it. My dad is 81 years of age now, and he didn't know nothing about it. So he couldn't understand it. And now he does, and he's fine with everything and with me. So then I went to see Robert Yemen, the referee's manager at the time, and I said, look, I got something to tell you. And I broke down crying, and I told him, and I said, am I going to have to finish refereeing? And he said, no, you're not, he said. I'm going to support you as your manager, and I won't know until the morning, but I can pretty much tell you now that the Welsh Rugby Union will support you as well. And they did. The Welsh Rugby Union, the players within the sport, not just in Wales, but outside Wales as well, spectators, fellow officials like Neil Hennessy up there, everybody supported me. The negatives I had, you could count on one hand. And then there was a huge, huge weight lifted off my shoulders. And I then went to Argentina, physically fit, mentally prepared, because I now was able to be myself. And when people do tell you, you can't be the best at what you want to be until you can be yourself, happy within yourself and happy within the environment that you are. Believe me, that is true. So I went to Argentina and I thought, right, this is my last chance. I've done everything I can to prepare. It's just down now to ability, whether I've got the ability to do it, because nothing else will affect that now. And I did something that game that I've done every single game since. Whether it's an under-12s game on a Sunday morning, the World Cup final. I'm not refereeing England-Ireland, by the way, but I am refereeing Ireland-France on Saturday. And I'll do the same thing on Saturday that I did in Argentina-Samoa back in 2005. When I cross the white to that touchline, the players go out to the field, the referee walks out, you'll have 85,000 people cheering their teams on, and you as a referee walk out behind them. And when I will walk out on the field in Dublin on Saturday to referee Ireland against France in the Six Nations, I'll do the same thing when I cross the white to that touchline that I've done every game since the Argentina-Samoa game. And that is, in that game in Argentina-Samoa, as I crossed the touchline, I said to myself, don't fuck it up. And I didn't. And then I went on to referee. This game on Saturday will be my 75th test match, the most that any referee has refereed internationally. Last Saturday, out in Galway, I did Connacht against the Dragons. It was my 146th Pro 12 game, the most ever of any referee. I have done 97 European Cup games, the most ever of any referee. I have done 5 European Cup finals, more than any other referee. I've done 4 Pro 12 finals, more than any other referee. And I wouldn't have done any more than 2 internationals if I hadn't accepted who I was and if I hadn't been allowed to be who I truly am. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter what country you come from, what the color of your skin is, your sexual orientations or your religious beliefs. None of those should matter one bit. All that should matter is that if you were a decent human being, that you were to be treated the same. And I emphasize the same, no better, no worse, just the same as everybody else. Not only in my case in the sport that I participated and loved and worked in, but in society, in everyday life. If there is one thing that today's society lacks, and that is respect. Rugby union's most important value and ethos is its value of respect. Respect from players to officials and vice versa. Spectators sitting next door to each other in the stadium and supporting different teams, but able to feel safe and be themselves in the environment that they are. Rugby union, in my view, is not only the greatest of team sports in the world on the field, but without a shadow of a doubt, the greatest of team sports in the world off the field. If it wasn't for rugby union, the Welsh Rugby Union, in supporting me the way that they are, colleagues like Neil Hennessy, friends like some of you here tonight that I know, if it wasn't for people like that and the great sport that rugby is, I wouldn't be able to be who I am today. I owe more to rugby, to my mum and dad, to my family and friends and the community that I've been brought up in, than they will ever owe to me. A lot of people will tell you that life is what you make it. It may well become true later on in your life, but I am a strong believer in that life makes you. The way that you're brought up by your mum and dad or your guardians or your grandparents, the way that you're brought up to say your please, your thank yous, to respect people, the communities that you're brought up within, the school, the universities you go to, your grandparents, the people living next door to you, the coaches down the rugby club, the football club, the hockey club, the people you go to school with, the teachers, the lecturers, the friends you spend your time with. All these people, in one way or another, will have a huge influence on you becoming the person that you become. When you come to your late teens, early 20s, you will probably become the person you're going to be for the rest of your life. There's always an exception to the norm, of course there is. And that is why I'm a strong believer in life makes you. And that's why it's hugely important that people are allowed to be themselves, not only in sport, in society, in everyday life, but within their schools, university, within the workplace. And that is why education has a huge part to play in allowing people to be who they are. None of us should be treated differently. All we deserve and all we can ask for is to be treated the same. When I was appointed to referee that World Cup final a year and a half ago, I was appointed to referee that World Cup final because in the people that were making the appointments, I was the best referee in the world. If any of them would have turned around and told me, we're going to appoint you to referee the World Cup final because it'll look good on World Rugby CV that the first openly gay man in professional sport is refereeing the World Cup final, then I would have turned around and told them, no, thank you. You give it to the person that deserves to do it. And that is the person who is the best. Thanks for your time.